I never felt worthy. I felt dark. I saw everybody else as light and clean and colorful. And I saw myself as this separate entity. You're suffering because you're scared and you think time's running out. Eternity exists. The answer isn't getting to Monday. The answer isn't getting to next year. This is the answer. I remembered that I put myself here. I chose this. This is school. We didn't come here to stay. We came here to learn. There's no wrong choice. Everything's always going to work out the way it's supposed to work out. There's nothing that you can do that will mess this up. This is about your experience. That was my first NDE.
My guest today is Nicole DeGroat, who has had more than one NDE. But on her first one, she went to the other side and she met her very favorite person in the world, her grandmother, who showed her that there is an eternity so that she would be able to come back and live her life more fully. So, Nicole, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to be here.
Oh, well, this is going to be a great conversation. And you've had more than one near death experience, but I think I'd like to start at the first one. I know it was your shortest one. So why don't you go ahead and share that in any way that makes sense for you to explain it?
So I've always had a very strong connection with my grandmother. My mom left when I was young, and so like the mother-daughter connection I didn't really have. And I was like the daughter with my brother and my dad growing up. So I didn't really have like that maternal, nurturing influence in my life. So my grandmother lived 3 houses down from me. And then when my father remarried my stepmother, there was like a bad relationship there and a lot of drama. And so anytime anything bad would happen to me, I would run out my front door and run down, the streets of my grandmother's house and like barge right in her door, lay on her lap. She'd rub my back. We'd watch a Disney movie and everything would just be fine. She like always made it better. I never dealt with my problems. I just would run for my grandmother. So I had a really hard time feeling worthiness. I kind of like just tried to do things in life to make up for how I felt inside, and nothing ever really quite worked out, living that way. So I got pregnant young, and I was worried that my family was mad at me. And my grandma showed up in my apartment, and she was like, "Don't worry, we're gonna go shopping and I'll show you everything." Because I didn't know how to be a mom. Like, I didn't have a mom. I was I wasn't like womanly at all. So she showed up at my apartment. She comforted me, and she was like, "It's gonna be great, don't worry." And then 2 days later she died suddenly, and I was 2 months pregnant with my daughter. So I felt like I called my father when he called me and told me. I called him a liar and hung the phone up because it was just so suddenly. And just I always said to myself, if I ever lost her, I don't know what I'd do. So here I am, 2 months pregnant, she's gone, and I named my daughter after her. Like, I really missed her. I felt it's like almost like her presence was so obvious that it created more of a hole inside me, just because it was just like I wasn't acknowledging it. So anyway, 7 years later, I was at a point in my life where I was just everything was falling apart. I wasn't coping well. I didn't have anywhere to run to now. I was me, it was me and me, and so I was drinking and coping and with substances and like relationships and everything. So I didn't like have a drug of choice. I would always just kind of try things that someone else was doing. And this one night, I overdosed on Halloween of 2014. I overdosed. And I remember like right before being like, oh no. Like, I knew for a moment like it was just too much. Like, my body, I knew I was gonna be out. And so but then immediately, as soon as like there came darkness, and then like from the darkness, like this energy was inspired from me to just like eject my body. And I didn't think, I didn't say what happened. I just ran out of my body, like just jumped out of my body and ran out my front door and started running towards my grandma's house. And she'd been passed on for 7 years at this point. But I didn't, it's not like I thought about it. I didn't say, where should I go? I ran to her house. Like, I knew she'd be there, because I felt like I felt in control of my creation at that point. Like, I knew if I wanted her to be there, she's there. So I was running towards her house. But as I was getting closer to her house, like, time was slowing down. Like, I could feel the ticks of like the clock like slowing. And as that would happen, like, I was being pushed back. Like, I was being stopped. Like, my solar plexus was being pushed back. And so as I approached her house, she had this big window in the front of her house. It was very big. And like, so anytime I would drive by, I'd see her sitting on her couch in her living room. And so as I got to the window, I was completely stopped and I saw her sitting there, just like, with, her legs crossed, like smoking a cigarette, just like she always was her whole life. She was just, it was as if I hadn't stopped seeing her for 7 years. And she was looking at me as if she hadn't stopped looking at me for 7 years. She wasn't like, oh, she was just like, hey, I've been expecting you, kind of like I was waiting for you. I knew you were coming. Which gave me more joy than if she had looked excited to see me. It was more comforting that she had like looked, she hadn't stopped looking at me. She's always been present, kind of. That's her face, the face she had. So I was stopped and I couldn't, I usually would run into her house and lay on her lap and she'd comfort me, but I could not move and I could not speak. I was being silenced. And I in a dream, you try to scream and you can't scream. It was like that. I couldn't do it. And she didn't speak to me in words. It was a exchange of like understanding. And she just went like this with her hand. And she was just basically her energy was, this is not your time. You have to stay, but look, like this, you are not able to fill your void because this is how you fill your void by knowing that eternity exists. Like this is why you're suffering. You're suffering because you're scared and you think time's running out and you're panicking. Like, don't, everything's fine. I have never gone anywhere. You're the one that didn't know I'm here. I've been here the whole time. I never stopped being aware of you. Like my awareness never went off you ever. Like yours, you believed I was gone. You believed I wasn't there anymore. So like, that's what you were experiencing, but I have never stopped being here and I need you to see this, but you have to go. Like you have to go back to your daughter and live life in a way now where you can help people and like don't stop hurting yourself, stop making yourself suffer. Like you don't have to do this. Like this is the answer. Like the answer isn't getting to Monday, the answer isn't getting to next year. This is the answer. This is what you need to know to be okay. And as soon as it was only like a moment I really understood that for a second, and then as soon as I did, like I was just slammed back into my body and it hurt. Like I remember like the heaviness and just being like feeling like I was crunched under bones, like kind of pushed down into this body. And I opened my eyes and there was like a bunch of police officers in my room. And I was in the paper for it the next day. Like there's an article about me in the paper the next day. And the message, I believe I was never going to die at this point. I believe that I was getting shown a light in the dark because this all happened at nighttime. Like there was a street lamp present, but that was it. It was all dark and the light from my grandma's house. That was it. So I believe my grandmother was being like, look, stop. Like you don't have to get to that point. Like, please listen to me. But when the article was printed and everybody was texting me, is this you? Is this you? Because they didn't put my name in the paper, but they put my age, street, and I denied it. I was like, no, it wasn't me, because I was embarrassed. And the more that I denied it, the more the message and the point of everything faded because I denied it. So it like just drifted away, and I didn't have the profoundness of like what I was being shown was left with my denial of everything else. So that was 2014, and I continued then to like not really live right and kind of circle the drain, hurt myself, hate life, not know what to do, being like distraught and despair all the time. So I that was my message. There was a message I was getting when I had my life taken, when I had this panic happen to me. I ran for help. Like I didn't acknowledge what happened. I heard chaos. Like when I was running, I heard it behind me. I heard like rustling and chaos, but I just ran. Like I ran for help. And that is like the very profound moment for me of my first NDE, because by the time I got to my fourth one, it was very different. Like it was more of me depending on myself. It wasn't me running for like someone to help me and find some sort of like comfort and, help. So that was my first NDE.
So my question for you is, I think you kind of answered a little bit. So you're in this state of despair and you're coping and you're using alcohol and different substances and you're running from your life. And your grandmother has shown you that there is light in the darkness and that she has never left you. How did that information and that knowledge change you from that moment in time when you came back into your body moving forward before your next one?
I believe, like, I don't know if you know the Rumi's quote, like, the wound is the place where the light enters you. I really do believe like I was so damaged from my life as a child that like it was going to take a chiseling. Like that what my grandmother did was she broke open. After that I had more faith. I had more wonder. I didn't like dismiss and laugh at things right away. I kind of like listened and but I wasn't worthy of it. I knew it existed. At this point, I knew it existed. Like I knew that my grandmother's mother was an angel my whole life. So of course she was, in this piece. But I still didn't know if was going to be damned to like this place because I was, I didn't handle life the correct way, and I just always felt unworthy. I felt dark. I felt like I felt different from the time I was 3 years old. In my head, I'd say, "You're dark. You're dark. You're dark. You're dark." I saw myself as like a darkness, and I saw everybody else as light and clean and colorful, and I saw myself as this separate like entity that was just like, and I saw myself pouring this like heaviness out into other people. Like I apologize for my existence. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. My mom would even be like, "Stop apologizing for breathing. Like you're always apologizing." So it was always going to take kind of a process to get me to wake up. So that which is why I was surprised that I was even getting this opportunity, because I was basically like taking the worst student and trying to make them go to Harvard. I'm like, why are you doing this with me? Like just let me die, like I'll probably be better off. But it was like they weren't getting. At one point I heard my grandmother and my aunts push me back into my body and go, "We cannot keep doing this, like stop it." Like it was just, they wouldn't give up on me. And that was, people think you can't see the non-physical realm, and it's not as real. But when you have like this like all-knowing eternal infinite love like not giving up on you, that's really like, it eventually gets you to listen. So
All right. Well, do you want to share the next one?
sure. Okay, so the next one, um it was 2016 February. I had been up for 3 days. I was drinking. I was just, my body was so tired. I was very bulimic at the time also. So I was very skinny, having, heart palpit, like I just was not healthy at all. So at this point, this is so embarrassing, but I dropped on the floor. I didn't have pants on, and I dog shit on my foot. When my boyfriend came home, he was a firefighter overnight. He was working. So he came home and I was on the floor with no pants on, and he was so mad at me. He called the ambulance because he tried to do CPR on me, like he did a bunch of times, but he said this time I was blue, like it wasn't working. But he did not cover me up or clean me off because he said I deserved to be seen that way by the paramedics when they showed up. So he didn't cover I was like naked from the waist down. But that's how much I'd push people to like be angry at me at this point. But when the paramedics found my phone, I was literally, when I dropped, I was Googling easy ways to die at home. Like at that time, which that would have been my story. That would have been like the story. Nicole died and she was Googling not even ways to die. It was like, or like brave ways to die. It was easy ways to die at home. It's so embarrassing. Like the easy way out kind of, but I guess I got my answer because God was like, "Oh, just Google it." And then boom, drop dead. Like it was the easiest way, I guess. Right. So when I woke up in the hospital the next morning, and I was like completely changed. And to this day, I don't think anybody really gets it. Overnight change person. Overnight, not even aware of what happened yet. I hadn't, because the time between me, going unconscious and waking up in the hospital, it had taken meditating and stuff to really get the full picture back of what had happened. I knew something had happened. And then the downloads, the puzzle pieces come together, and you're like, "Oh my gosh," like you remember. So like I remember the basics part of what happened, but the messages and the connections and like the all that was just really beautiful. So um I remember at that point, I remember my body feeling like it was gonna drop, and my heart was fluttering, and I remember being like, "Oh my God, Nicole, oh my God, like look what you did, like this is happening," and you start to think about like, who's gonna find me, how am I gonna look, like that kind of thing. And I dropped, and like something happened with my heart. Like I dropped, and as I dropped, I didn't ever acknowledge the drop. My physical body didn't drop to my awareness. Like my awareness stayed in a higher place, and it was just kind of like this, like a shift, like this. And I remember like the shadows on the wall going like this a little bit, and like the like things just going like this. And I remember feeling like all of a sudden there's like a vibrating in my mind. I could hear like sound, like I could hear colors. It was just really, everything just got very vibrant. Like as I became more interested in my environment, it became more vibrant. It was just as like this interaction between me and my outside world all of a sudden, which I remember I got I enjoyed it at first, but then I was like, wait a second. You were just panicking that you were gonna drop dead. Like, how are you feeling so good right now? I didn't take ecstasy. Like, what the hell happened? Like, there's no logical reason why you were just freaking out and now you're feeling like you're in paradise all of a sudden, and you're like curious about the color on the wall. Like, I didn't even care about myself. Like, why am I looking? You know what I'm saying? It was just like such a different perspective for me to be in all of a sudden out of nowhere. So I knew something had happened, but it wasn't anything like where I looked back for my body, or it was just kind of like I got curious and kind of followed like my impulses. So I remember just feeling like one with everything, just feeling like my my feelings and my mood was influencing like how I was receiving the outside environment. So I was being called to go outside, which for me was profound, even though it doesn't sound it because of the way I ran out of my body the first time. This time was more of like, get comfortable where you are, like acknowledge your environment, but then come out here because this is going to be kind of cool. It wasn't like go find somebody to help me. It was like the help's out here, but like do your thing. So I was able, it kind of felt like I wouldn't have been able to handle the outside environment right away because of the beauty and like how everything started to become what it really was, like the trees and the grass. I needed to deal with the carpet and the walls first. Like I needed to like process that, and then I went outside, and it was just, I almost dropped to my knees. Like the euphoria, I don't know if you know that feeling of like overwhelming euphoria where you want to just drop to your knees, not in like surrender, but in just like bliss. And it's like as I walked outside, it just, everything was like the veil was just coming up on everything, and I was seeing how the entire time how everything really looked, how everything really was. But I was, my perception, my physical eyes, my physical senses, they were too dumbed down, they were too inferior to really see what was going on. So like as I walked outside, there was the same street lamps that was in my first one. Now the first one, it was like a background thing, but this time it was like the main focus of like the outside was this street lamp emitting this light that put the sun, put any light I've ever seen to shame. This was real light. It was like it had a presence. It wasn't just showing stuff. It was like it had a vibration. It had a love. It had a connection. It was just a presence, a true presence. And as I walked, I was being called to walk into this light. And as I walked towards it, time stopped. And I remember like my first feelings, my first kind of like personal thoughts and feelings as I walked towards this light was to laugh my ass off. I was laughing at how serious I was and how I was like, Nicole, duh, like you did this, like you wanted to be here, like don't. I was just, you took it so serious, and you like ruined it for yourself. You made it so horrible, and like you made yourself so sad when you could have just not been sad. You could have just shifted your awareness onto something else and enjoyed your time. I remembered at that point, like, that I put myself here. I chose this. And then I acted like a victim for being here. Like I acted like I was being condemned, even though I was being gifted this opportunity. Just because I had to forget what I chose to do in order to do what I needed to do. And so what happened with me though was just I became too used to like being hurt and like traumatized that I didn't ever think that would. I always thought I was going to be that victim. I was never going to be the one who overcame the pain and like became more from it, because I didn't think I was worth it. I didn't think I had that in me until I had this experience. I saw that I was like the driver the whole time. I was never in the back seat. I was actually in control this entire time. And so and then I time stopped, which to me was like, especially at this time, I always felt like I was fighting time. I was always like, I'd wake up in the morning, I'd be like, okay, I'd make lists, like I gotta be here and here, 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 here. And it's like the end of the night, it wasn't even enough time to just, like like have some relaxing time and feel like I had, time to myself. It was just always like a race. And then when time stopped, I remember like being, my first thought was, Monday is never coming again. Like the bills will never come in the mail again. Nothing's coming for me. Like everything stopped. Like it was just like ultimate peace, ultimate comfort, ultimate stillness. And it was just like I understood at that point that time was created to make us panic and to make us run towards something that, you know, was always there, or was, was always in us to begin with. We didn't have to, run towards anything. Nothing was outside of us that we needed. But time made us, put us in that perspective, which I understood the value of it, but I was so amused by, how I had allowed myself, especially when I thought I was so strong, like how I allowed myself to be um overtaken by these things, and not even, I never questioned the reality of it. I only questioned my strength and my ability to handle life. I never thought maybe life was a little, doing something a little bit to me too. So I walked towards the light. I had, I had this aware, like this, like revelation of time stopping, and, I chose to be here. Um, and then as I walked towards the light, I started to see like these immense amount of beings that had always been there, that had always been kind of like my cheerleaders, just like, and I mean like infinite. There wasn't like a how many. It was just like, it just it couldn't even explain it, and they were just focused on me. And the worst, most like uncomfortable feeling they were focused on me with was interest. Like there was never judgment. There was never like no one's condemning me. No one was like, taking score. Just like a curiosity that made me feel kind of, on stage a little bit. But it was just, people that I had not that had always known me, but I had not always known, that had like always that had come into my experience to like observe what I was going through, but that I hadn't been aware of yet. That was how I felt, kind of just all the times in my life. I felt so alone, and I felt like no one knew I existed, or no one cared. And it was just like the whole entire time the biggest force in the universe was focused at me, loving me in every moment. And I felt so disconnected and alone, and it was just the farthest thing from the truth. And these people were, these beings were always there, always there. There was never a nap. There was never like going to the gym. Like they were always interested and loving and encouraging me and cheering me on. They were never, I hope she doesn't make it this time. They were really in it for me. So I started to see who these beings were, and I started to understand their purpose and like what they were, contributing to, like, the evolution of humanity. And and so as I walked into the light, I started to shift my awareness. Now it went from like receiving them and receiving what nature really looked like, and the constructs shattering around me, and just everything becoming what it really was. So that when I started to shift into like being one of them, into like focusing where they were focusing, I felt the peace was so overwhelming that I understand why people run into the peace. If people don't have kids, if people, have learned all they want to learn and they're tired, it's not like the things we think we're going to worry about if we're dying is just the last things we actually ever think of. It's just not even like that. It's just that we understand the bigger picture so infinite, so instantly, that we're not worried about that friend from like, like the bigger picture becomes the bigger picture. So, I started to, I understood like everything I was doing. So that was like romantic. That was like intoxicating me as I first entered this light and first became into this realm. I was just like, the peace was just, it was so profound that like it's almost like I wanted to go back into the chaos real quick, just like, because it was, I understood why I was going through what I was going through, because it can't be that bad if it's not that good. And I got that finally. I didn't have faith in the good. I didn't think I deserved it, even if it existed. I used to look up at the cross, and I was raised Catholic. I'd look up at Jesus in church, and I'd be like, he is so important, and you're not. He doesn't even know you exist. Like you're in the nosebleed section, and he's on stage. Like that's how I felt. And as I had this experience, I realized like that spirituality is so like inside each of us. It's so personal within each of us, like that I was important. It doesn't mean I didn't take away anybody else's importance by being important. And that's what I felt it was about. I felt like it had to be that one. So as I started to shift into becoming one of, the non-physical energies, in, focus on the loved ones on earth, um, I started that it was only that moment that I started to be like, oh, my life, my life. Like I started to think about my earth life. And then I remember getting a picture of my father because we were really close. But then my daughter, she was 2016, she was 8 at the time. As I shifted, I saw the back of her head come into my focus. And so as soon as I saw the back of her head, it's like no one had to explain it. I knew what it meant. It meant the same thing as my grandmother down the street, always being aware of me, never taking her eyes off me, but me turning away from her because I thought she was gone. That was happening to me, and my daughter. So as I was shifting into where, the other realm, she was turning away. And I knew that that meant, which my grandma was okay with because she was 70 something years old and she had lived her life. She'd had, survived cancer. She was really tired. So when she saw her granddaughters, the back of my head, she was like, it was okay. But for my mom to leave me when she did, and then for me to see myself leaving my daughter too to fend for herself, and like, I was like, no, I couldn't. The second I saw the back of her head, I knew what that meant. And I dropped to my knees and begged for my life. I said, I don't care. Like, I don't care how much it hurts. Please, I'll do anything. I don't care if I go back. Like, I don't care what it means. I just, please, I can't leave her. I can't leave her, please. And it was the most comforting part of all this was that as I did that, it was kind of like amusing to the whole energy around me because nothing stopped being like high vibrational and all unconditional loving. Everything still stayed, the way it was. I was the only thing that changed. I was the one that got, negative. I was the one that's putting out this energy. So this light of this like street lamp, as I was panicking, I felt myself putting out this, like my grandma, that exchange of energy. I was putting out this panic and this fear and this worry, and the light connected to my core right here to my solar plexus, and it was sucking that energy out of me, like transmuting it or alchemizing it, and then putting it back into my chest. And so we were having like this exchange, and as it was doing that, the light was basically like, didn't you just see we showed you? Why are you freaking out? This is your life. This is your choice. No one's putting you here. No one's judging you. Did nothing wrong. There's no wrong answer. She'll be fine. Everything's always going to work out the way it's supposed to work out. There's nothing that you can do that will mess this up. This is about your experience, your growth, like what you learn, what you become. Like you're freaking out for no reason. Like we couldn't have embraced you any more than we did. Like, don't freak out. Don't go back to that place. So I calmed down, and the one thing that really hit me was that there's no wrong choice. There's no wrong choice. There's no wrong choice. Like, if you want to run into the peace, go. If you want to go back and help people and tell your story, go. And I remember that really meaning a lot to me, is going back and telling my story. But then as I got into that ego mind a little bit of I have something to say, I heard 3 years, 3 years. No one is going to want to listen to you for 3 years. And I remember being like, 3 years, but look what I just saw. Like, I know it now. I know, kind of having that attitude. But I understand, because when I came back from my experience that time, no one wanted to. People, I don't want to hear your euphoric experience from your drug overdose. Like, get the hell out of here. Like, no one wanted to hear that. So I had to really be quiet for years and not talk about it, and make it more of like me telling people because it meant something to me, not because I was trying to defend my drug overdose. Like, it had to just like sit for a while and become meaningful to, and so it took me 4 years to do that Facebook live that I did, which, got a lot, it helped a lot of people. It really did. And a year later, I got an interview with Jeff Mora. But when I came back from that experience, I woke up in the hospital, and I remember I opened my eyes, and I've woken up in that hospital a few times, but when I woke up this time, I was like not putting up a fight. I felt it. I was just like, it didn't matter anymore what was going on out here. I didn't care if like the police came and dragged me to jail, like at that moment, because they would drag my body there, but they were never going to take out away what I now had in here. Like, nothing that happened out here mattered anymore. And that was the moment I woke up the next morning. The night before, I was Googling easy ways to die at home. So for me to wake up and have this, I was like, I knew that something happened, but like no one else for years. It was really hard, because I feel like if people have like a heart attack, and they come back and they tell their NDE, people listen. But when you have a drug overdose, like, no one wants to hear about it. They want you to, so you're kind of like you have to stay quiet for long enough, actually, for you to really integrate and process it more than you usually would if you didn't have it. And so I actually felt like I became really strong with it. Like, I became really had convictions. I had, no one was ever going to tell me what I feel like if I had opened my mouth too soon, I might have been coaxed out of the strength of it and out of what the relevance and the profoundness of my experience. But since I had to like sit with it by myself for so long, like we became best friends, me and that experience. No one could take that away from me. It was what got me through my life and to this day, actually. Like I lost it a couple of times going through stuff, but it's still the only thing holding me up. It's still the only thing that gets me by. Because if it wasn't for that, I would not be here. And my daughter, I would not be here.
Wow. Nicole, this was such a beautiful, first of all, thank you for the braveness in telling this because I know that there is sometimes judgment and shame around how you had this experience. But to me, it doesn't matter. There is no judgment here. And hopefully you're on a channel that you feel the love and the gratitude from the people who watch and listen to this experience because there's so much to take out of this. So I want to start with the being of light, the presence. Will you explain to people what the feeling of that being was? Like as you were encountering that being, what did that being feel like to you?
Um, like your closest, most beloved best friend relative that you look at every time and feel like you know them so well, but they look more familiar every time. Like you feel like you've been looking at them for eternity. Um, and it's like you don't even have to do any effort to like express how you're just aware of their awareness of every single thing that you have felt, that you have lived, that you have seen, that you have secretly behind. It was just as if it's like an unspoken um relief of empathy and just strength from it, and empower. You don't feel weak because you're getting sympathy. It's not like that. It's like you finally feel like no matter who you're close with on earth, like everybody has their own perspective from like their own life experience. This was a pure awareness of me from a unjaded, altered place of just like pure love. And so it wasn't like they were listening to me to come back at me with their perspective. It was they knew. And it was a relieving thing for me because I felt like my whole life no one got me. No one ever understood me. People all thought they knew, they didn't know. And it was just like I feel like everybody was always telling my story for me. But this was like I felt like it was like an unspoken kind of like little inside joke we all had, because it was like they knew, they saw, like it was they were it was the epitome of truth and of acceptance and of unconditional love and just joy and just relief and comfort.
Now you're seeing things in this experience. Does the being look like a silhouette of a human with light coming out of it? Is it an energy? Like, what does this being look like when you encounter it?
Funnily enough, well, since I didn't decide to fully go over, I do feel like things became more clear to me as I went closer into the light. I feel like, and I said this to Jeff, maybe as I went more in, maybe it would have been familiar faces revealing themselves one by one. But from where I stood at that point, you see ghosts, with Patrick Swayze when he goes into the light at the end, and it's all like just like the faceless. They don't have any
Human
facial features or
features?
anything, but like you could see the light around them and you could see that they're human beings. But it was just, and there was just like a thin, maybe an inch or two of like strong light like outside, like outlining them, and like a little bit of a shadier color here, but there's no like specific features. But like I said, I don't know if as I went closer in and like went back it fully in, if they would have been more you know familiar to me. Maybe it would have been like my aunt, like one by one. But this, I'm telling you right now, like there was a sea of them. Like it was an infinite army of people. It wasn't like 20 or 200. It was just ongoing and ongoing and ongoing. It's like it was nonstop.
And were they all the same in the sense that they all knew everything about you, everything that they could have observed, every hidden thought that you wouldn't necessarily want somebody to
It
know
was
about you?
it was those that were most interested and there really, and like had a investment in it. They knew everything, but it didn't mean that the ones that were coming in and like becoming interested, they were all gonna, it was like a ripple, like they were all gonna receive the same information as the truth. So like there was, it's kind of like the how like we say we're all fragments of the source, and how like there's still at this moment there's new pieces of that being created, as like creation is infinite. So it was kind of like they all had the same intention and all the same amount of love and interest, but just it was like a flowing, like a so yeah, like the closer ones, the ones that were more invested and up close, like they knew they, but it was a ripple effect out of knowingness of what was, so like if I experienced something and the person right up, nearest to me kind of empathized and had this vibrational connection with me, it would ripple out back, and then there was like an understanding that would become, known.
So, do you think that this group of beings that went on infinitely was what people refer to as the collective?
Yes. The collective is always one. Like I'm the collective, they're the collective, but like I'm physical, they're non-physical. So it's like where we're meeting is probably that place that we unite the deepest, like the most unexpected. But then I feel like it never stops. Like we're yeah. So like my collectives, my daughter, my collectives, my grandmother. It's all connected.
So, you know how in a company you have a hierarchy. So, you at the very top, you have a CEO, and then you have the executive team, the CISO, the VPs, and then it goes down into directors and managers, et cetera. Did there seem like there was a hierarchy within these beings, or did they all seem to be the same where there was no good, better, best?
There was definitely no level or hierarchy. There was just more presence. It was like a presence. There was some that were more present, some that were more um focused in certain things, and like so, it was definitely never, there was definitely, because we're infinites, and we're always going to be learning more. There's always going to be something more to grow from. So like is never is one being in a higher place than another, because we're always, we're always becoming more. So how can you measure me against somebody if we're always going to be becoming more? There's no, you can't measure eternity. So but there are like, I can learn from this person at this point, and then maybe, this, we all can. That's what I'm like I say, I feel that a lot of the people on earth now who are judged and condemned for the way that they've experienced life are actually going to end up being the ones getting hugs on the other side for saying, thank you for putting yourself on the front lines and going through that so I could learn from it. Thank you for going through that. Instead of being like, I can't believe they're doing that, it's going to be like, thank you for, for volunteering to like go through that experience because I grew from it. So it's always like we're infinitely going to be, that's what the collective is. The collective, when we come together, we're all balanced, we're all a unit. When we separate, we all go to different places, but we're always feeding each other and growing from each other.
Beautiful. So, what this is reminding me of is the life reviews that a lot of people have. Because people, when they explain their life reviews, they relive their life from their perspective. And then when they're in an interaction, they become the other person and they're immediately completely aware of everything that happened in that person's life, and they understand why that person is saying or acting in the particular way that they are. And in that way, the understanding changes, the judgment goes away, because how do you judge something when you know all of the reasons why it happened? So it makes complete sense that we would go back and almost like plug in to that
Mm-hmm.
collective to download the information that we've from our experiences individually to, like you said, feed the whole collective. And in
Right.
that way, we all understand things in more detail than we ever could in just one experience.
Right. Right. Yep. I mean, that's why empaths have so many hard times when we're here. It's because no one here gets that. They think if you're going through hard times, it's like you're putting yourself through it, or you earned it, or like you deserve it. When in actuality, who the people going through hard times are just at that point of learning. And so, you know, thank them. Thank you for your bravery.
So you also had a very unusual experience with time, and I loved how you described it. And so you said that time is created to make us, and the word you used was panic.
Hmm.
And you also said you understand why it's set up that way. So will you elaborate a little bit more on what you understand about that concept?
Well, okay, so I I always felt like I was at war against time just because I felt unworthy. I felt like I messed up life. I felt like I wasn't doing things the way I was expected of me. So I felt like I was up against the clock. I was up against, getting things the right way because when I died or when I wasn't here anymore, that what I left behind, that the things I did here and the way I spent my time was going to be my who I was going to be what I was remembered as, and like the legacy I left behind. Um, and so, and I'm like, I was really all day, every day, go, 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 go. And so, um, when I experienced time stopping, it was like, first of all, if I knew that to begin with, I mean, I if we knew what we were doing here, everybody would be running around all day, every day, just to know that moment when we transition to feel that the difference, like the discord between where we were and where we're going, like that, that the space between that, everybody would be doing that. It's the ones that play it safe. Their transitions kind of like, but the way I was panicking, the way I was fighting against time, the way I was feeling like a failure and feeling like I wasn't never doing things right. When I finally got that that peace, that like stillness, I understood, if I because I understood eternal life at that point. I understood that I was fighting against something that didn't exist, but I understood completely why I would put that in my experience if I knew how wonderful eternity felt. So I wanted to like kind of, you know feel the starvation so that when I ate, it tasted better. Like it was just,
Yeah,
I
like a
understood.
juxtaposition of the dichotomy of those two completely different feelings, right?
Right, right, right. And it was like I wasn't at that time, I wasn't failing at life anymore. I saw that I was getting the most out of it. I was getting because this I saw this as the show. I saw this as the end all be all. This life was it. But then when I had my experience, I saw that this is the waiting room. This is the chapter. This isn't it. So if this isn't it, then what I'm doing here is like I'm in training. I'm readying myself. I'm getting the most out of this momentary thing so that I can bring everything I learned back with me to the real event, to the real thing, to the where I'm really doing my creating from. This isn't where I have to prove myself. This is where I have to learn, get to know myself, where I have to like, like become insightful and go through things in a way where I would never feel things I would never feel in the eternal life in paradise, because there is no suffering there. There is no jealousy. There is no hunger. There is no exhaustion. So, we have this opportunity to come here and expose ourselves to those things. So I really believe that, those of us who really were all about growing and all about, evolving as our spiritual beings, we really came here with intent to really go through it, because we know this is just like the training room. This is not the event. So we're preparing ourselves for something. We must be really going, we must be really moving towards something beautiful if this is where we're at and doing what we're doing.
Well, I'm curious to know what you think we might be preparing ourselves for.
I think we're creating a reality that has never been experienced before. I think
You
that this
mean
has
on
been
Earth, an earthly reality?
a joining of earth and non-physical and physical realities. I think that we have been, having to go through not a karma. I don't like the word karma, but through a cycle of like cleansing, of becoming the most cut off, like separation. We say there's no such thing as separation. Like there's no white and black. There's no man or woman. There's no death and life. It's like if we can say there's no separation and everything else. There's no such thing as here and there. There's no such thing as like heaven and earth. What it is just a reality. It's a dimension. It's a awareness of something that I think that the more the vibration rises, the more the frequency raises, the more believers there are. I do think that that veil is going to eventually become so non-existent that we're going to realize that this was just all about a separating to rejoin, and like the celebration of that. And I think it's not going to matter if we're non-physical or physical. It's not going to matter, because we're all going to eventually become the same frequency, the same, the same consistency, the same whatever. We become light bodies. We're all gonna it's like we had to go here to be there, and now we're going to, the light in the dark. They're going to join as one. We're going to reunite, and it's going to be like, just as I laughed at time, just as I laughed at everything, it's going to be a joke that we ever thought anybody was gone.
Yeah, I agree with all those things that you said, but what's interesting is what you said before where you talked about there is value in having some of these experiences like that dichotomy of feeling panic so that later on we can experience that the panic wasn't real and this is the eternity and the eternal moment. So when we get to a point where we're merging this earthly experience with the lightness of the other side and the veil thinning, will it in some way take away from that difference of experience? Or are there enough of us on the planet right now that we've experienced all we need to know and now it's just an evolution?
I think, oh, I think we might, I mean, I don't know, but I think we might, once the comfort and the reunion and the kind of catching our breath happens, I think we might even dive deeper some next time. I
You mean like
don't
come
know.
back more veiled?
Like, not as for as long, not like as long as it's been, but maybe for like a second, we just like get a quick fix of, because it's like now we know the vibration of those negative feelings, and it's the ones that went there, it's the ones that dove the deepest, that are the reasons that we know, and we can bring into the other realm these dense, horrible things, which are going to end up being reference points and inspirational, reference points, and places we go to remember, to appreciate, because it is like, if you're in eternal bliss all the time, it's like, yeah, it's nice, but what if for a second we turn the lights out? How more appreciative will you be of where you're at if you can just feel not like you're not there for a moment?
It's a great point. You mentioned something that I think is interesting. I'd love for you to expand on it. You said that your feelings were influencing what you were experiencing, and you've
Mhm.
had a lot of time to sit in that and to understand it. And I would imagine practice and change maybe how you are now from how you were before. So, what would you tell everybody about that aspect of understanding from your NDE?
Okay, so I was very lucky. I didn't, and it's just like we were just talking about, like the having the perspective of what we have and where we are to like what it could be. And after my second NDE in 2016, I had, that was my beautiful, bright, wonderful experience where I had, the euphoria and the choice and I had a little bit of panic, but it was expected of me. But I came back like a someone who was always talking from the light. I was always, I was probably pretty annoying. I was love and light, and like, we're eternal and we're never gonna die. There's no such thing as death. I always said that. There's no such thing as death. There's no, in my interview with Jeff, oh, there's no such thing as death. No one goes anywhere. No one leaves. No one goes anywhere. And so I I I thought that was awakening. I thought that was reaching the point of finding out what the secret was and what we're doing, and how we were supposed to be. But then, my 2 weeks after my interview with Jeff, was my dream was coming true. I actually, my ex texted me. He's like, I cannot believe it. You manifested your dreams coming true, because ever since 2016, when I had my NDE, I wanted to just tell. It's like I didn't want to tell people so that I was like smart. I as soon as I dropped and I was in that other realm, I my first thought was, oh my god, I can't wait to tell everybody. I cannot wait for everybody to realize that this is real, that this is the truth. Like this, oh my god, everybody's gonna be so relieved. Like that was my first thought. And so my biggest mission was just to like, I didn't want to tell anybody about me, and I wanted to remind people of their divinity. Like I wanted to like walk them back up that staircase, that spiral staircase, back to remembering who they are, because I didn't get joy out of telling them that I'm this way. I got joy out of watching that light go back on in their eyes. And even if it faded and it was like a process, I loved to remind people of their divinity, because if anybody in this world did not think they were divine, did not think they were worthy, it was me. My whole life, you're dark, you're dark. For me to know and even say the words that I'm divine, like, I wish more people had been paying attention to me when I was at my darkest points, because if they had really seen the difference, they would have been like, "Well, something did happen to this girl." So I wanted to just help people. That was my, so right after Jeff, my emails filled up. like people were just like begging me to help them. I was helping people like for free on my own time, like at work. I was on the computer, like emailing freaking novels to people, answering their questions. And then he died, my boyfriend Johnny. He was like the love of my life. He was next to me during my spiritual awakening. He was there for everything, encouraged me, supported me through this whole process. He died suddenly, like a couple weeks later after Jeff's podcast. So, and I done another interview before that at that point. So I did 2 interviews. I was set up for a third one. My dream, like I was just finally helping people, and then he died. And I just remember being like, did I do something wrong? Did I tell my story wrong? Did I give the wrong message? Like, am I being punished? Like, why would I help all these people and then God would take him from me? Like the worst person that you could take from me. He was my spirituality, and I realized now, looking back, he was a crutch, and I was using him to hide behind, and I wasn't ever really taking big risks because I felt safe with him in my life. So um I lost my spirituality. I was so scared at that point because now I was completely distraught, but I also knew what happens when you die. So I knew where he was. So it was just very scary to like have that information in my hands at that time when I literally couldn't. I had to be sleeping or drunk like for weeks after he died. I could not be aware and awake in a life where he was not alive. I couldn't. I would wake up and I'd be like, oh my God, he's dead. And I would just start like I couldn't like exist in a reality where he wasn't here. I've had very, very profound interactions with him, like very like meaningful ones, but so at that point I felt I didn't believe in spirituality. I felt like I was given the middle finger from spirituality. I felt like I was being punished. I felt like if I leaned on spirituality during this point, I was like acknowledging that it was okay that it took Johnny from me. I was like kind of resentful, and it was I was there and I chose to come back, and now it was like a city of angels. Now he went there and now I'm here, and it was just like no, it was very
Yes,
upsetting.
Meg Ryan.
Yeah, I was like, why didn't I just stay then? It was just really bad. Um, so I lost my job a year after he died, and I just was not in a good place. I was not in a place to help anybody. I went from having that experience in 2016 to right back at being lost. Like it didn't save me. It changed me, but life was still life and I was still me. And like I could be aligned and aware, but when you got to live in a life where you're in pain and like you don't know how to make spirituality be the painkiller of that, it's just what happened was is I got to experience the death experience, so I was all happy about it. But when I had someone taken from me from the death experience, and I had to stay and they got to go, that was a whole. And I really do believe now that I was being trained, I was being taught how to like not only help from knowing the light, but like of crawling out of the darkness, of like the deepest of darkness. So I could not only like cheer you on, but I could like heal your wounds too, because I had to heal my own too. um
Well,
I
can I
feel
ask you a
like
question here? Do you think, based on what you know now, that everything is happening for you or to you?
for me for me
Which
because
is such a big thing to say after a loss and after some of the experiences that you've had. I agree
yes,
with that also, and that comes up a lot in these conversations. It's all happening for you, and it's hard to understand that when there is pain or sadness or
right,
things that seem bad. So tell me, you called him a crutch. You knew that there was something that he was doing that you needed to take over and do for yourself.
right.
So what is the blessing of losing him after you've gone through the devastation and the sadness of losing him?
This might sound crazy. I there is like a steady reason, but then there's like my reason I feel like is going on. I feel like so he I after I started my dreams started coming true. I feel like him on a cellular level. I feel like he was an addict, and he was struggling a lot, and I feel like he got to when he had his experience. I feel like he got to reflect, and I you do get to see if you're gonna benefit lives by staying, or if you're gonna help people if you leave. Like if you back, it's kind of like you see the bigger picture. It's not just about me. If I see that me staying is gonna harm the people I love, like, and I could go into the peace. I'm gonna go into the peace. Like he didn't have kids. Like I understand. I understand now why he ran into the peace after suffering the way he did. But I also know why he held on for the point he held on to. It was like he waited for me to do that interview. He waited for me to do that because he knew that I wouldn't have done it if he had died first. And also the fact that I did it and now my message was out there, it's kind of like I did kind of feel like I had to hold on to it. It did mean something for me, someone like me, to go on a channel like that and talk about it. I knew it was, even when I lost sight of it, there was meaning to it for me. And so I feel like he wrote up on a postcard one morning for me. He wrote, "I love you more than life itself and would die for you on command." And I always thought that was so morbid of him. And I remember when he would piss me off, I'd hold up the card, I'd be like, "Die, die, die," like as a joke. But like I really do feel like we had an agreement that the weekend he died on a Monday. That Friday we talked, we had a business idea for spirituality. He never had a spiritual awakening, but he was like enamored by mine. He was obsessed with like listening to me. He wanted to, because he wanted one, but he was too heady. He was like too intellectual to like really let himself free enough to have one. So he was an IT guy, very techy, and I was very creative and like, artistic. And so we had this idea that we were going to create a virtual reality program that you put on, and then you would play something, and it would ignite a spiritual awakening in your brain. Like it would let something go where you couldn't undo it. So like he was going to design it and I was going to create like how it looked, what it was needed, and he was going to make the tech part of it. And we were so excited because we knew we met for a big reason. We were gonna have the spiritual business. This we were gonna make people believe because of his side. And so then he died that weekend after we were talking about it like thoroughly. And then now it's like I feel like, okay, well, we were gonna help people remember the truth through that virtual reality, but maybe we were gonna do it through reality. Because
Yeah. Do
now
you
that
think
he's
he's
there,
helping you on the other side with what you're doing now?
I feel like I feel like he's way actually no, I I I have been through so much since he died that he literally, on his birthday this past year, I saw him. He wasn't outside my perspective. He was in the bottom left of my eye, out of the corner of my, I know what people mean at the corner of their eye now, but he was in the inside my eye, and he was flailing his arms around impatiently as if like I finally caught sight of him, and he was just like I'm taking too long. I'm like not healing, up to the place he thought I was going to be. I'm kind of, a little traumatized, but he was in a way of just like, "Come on, like, what are you doing? Like, no, 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 no," like trying to keep my attention and show me how frustrated he was that I was just, taking so long to go come tune back in. Because I think that he knew and I knew that if he transitioned, and it was funny that I'm going to be the physical one and he's going to be the non-physical, because in life I was so spiritual and he was so physical. But he knew, it's like we knew that if he transitioned first, I would look that much harder for that realm. I would look so much harder for him that I will peek my head into a point where something will, break apart or shatter or whatever. Like it was just kind of like I feel like we knew the bigger picture. We agreed on something before we came here. We got so wrapped up in our love here that it broke our hearts to like be separate. But in the bigger picture, it's we're doing something more. It's not about this. He used to say to me all the time, like, we can't get married here. We're married in another life. Like we're married in the real life. Like he'd always say stuff like that. And now it's like I understand why you would say things like that. But I do think that we're gonna help. I think we're gonna help more people this way than if we had created some sort of virtual reality that would have just become one of the many. It would have, I feel like my love for him is so strong that my grandma being on the other side, yeah, I love her and I would love to, but this changed me. Him being there too, it really made me more motivated. And after he died December 2021, and in April 2022 I had another overdose and I had another NDE, and he was there.
Okay. Well, let's hear about that one.
um so this time I was just, the grief was ridiculous, the feeling of peace. All right, so his ex-girlfriend, my best friend, same person. And when I was grieving from Johnny, I same thing, I would do any drug, I would reach for anything. And there was this one drug that I just really couldn't do because it was too strong for me, but I went to that girl, Alyssa was her name. And I, overdosed with her there. And as soon as I did, Johnny was there, and I immediately started begging to stay. I was like, because the relief of the grief and the despair I've been feeling, and the peace I'd felt finally, and the comfort and the warmth, and just the certainty, and I like wasn't falling down falling down, free falling anymore. I felt caught. I felt finally and I remember just looking at him, and as soon as I looked at him, I knew it was going to be very short. And I knew that's why I panicked. And I was like, please, please. And he was like, no. He was like, if anything happens to you, Alyssa will never be okay. She will never forgive herself and she will eventually die from your death. Like, this will be a thing now. This will be you die from my death. She dies from your death. It's just going to be this thing. He was like, you cannot leave her. You cannot let her deal with the fact that she's with, you don't see her for a couple weeks. She goes, you come to her and you die on her watch. Like, you can't do that to her life experience. So amongst my begging, he to stay because of my pain, he made me sacrifice that to come back to save my friend from, dying from her pain and leaving her alone. And, someone me and him both loved like very much. So she saved my life that day. And so I was okay. But um, I remember just feeling like as soon as I looked at him, it wasn't like we were gonna just there was no choice. There was no, talking to me. It's his eye on me. I just knew the second I saw him that he was like, no, you can't stay. You're not staying here. This is not supposed to happen right now. Um, so it went from me running for help to me, kind of, discovering and like being shown guided to like what my choice should be, to just begging to stay there. So it's like I was going through like this thing, and I know now why I still suffered at that point, because that's not healthy either. Like, and these are my most profound, biggest experiences of my life. These are death experiences. So this is my realness. This is me and me. This isn't anybody else. I'm not putting a show on for anybody. This is how I really feel to my core. And so my last experience of begging to stay dead, my daughter's still here. Like, these things are still, and now what? Because I'm just not as, now because I'm more in my pain, it's okay to go. Like, this isn't, so um shortly after that, my daughter was diagnosed with leukemia. I At that point, it's just like I wanted him so bad to be here. Really felt like I was being punished. It wasn't at that point like life's just making you stronger. It was at this point I'm like, okay, like I ended up being homeless. When my daughter got sick, like my family had a falling out, and so I left my house, and it ended up being a big mistake, and I ended up being having nowhere to go for a bit. And so up until March of this year, I I was staying with somebody on and off, and I ended up getting attacked by their pit bull in March 13th of this year, and I almost lost my right arm. Um, I coded in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. I coded during my surgery. I That was probably the worst time of my life. I was the time of my life I had nothing to fight for. I had nothing I felt like to live for. I had nothing to inspire me to want to be alive. I was very just very nothing. I was just very, you know, I I if I wanted, it would have been the right time if I ever want to just give up and lay down and get killed and like, give up, so I was very surprised to see myself or experience myself fight harder for my life against that dog than I had ever fought for anything. I can't even express to you the exhaustion. Like, I fought this pit bull off of me, almost lost my arm, managed with like, and almost lost like they got a dog tooth out of my knee joint. There was a dog tooth in my wrist they found a couple months later. He fractured my femur. He almost ripped my arm completely off. I can't use some of my fingers are completely curled on my right hand. I can't straighten them. I'm lucky he went from my arm to my leg instead of my arm to my throat. But I'm telling you, like, I went from feeling like life sucked to putting up the biggest fight physically that I ever have in my life. And then I ended up getting the dog away from the dog after like forever, and I was bleeding out where I was, and the cops, like, it took them a while to get inside because there were two dogs, and they put me in the ambulance, and I coded in the ambulance, and I went into 6-hour emergency surgery, where I also stopped breathing, and I had an out of body experience during that time, which was there was no lights. This was I became aware of, like, I became conscious, and I heard rustling of like that paper stuff, the stuff they put on you during surgery, and I heard women talking to my left. And I remember being like sort of still knowing I existed, like kind of knowing where I was. And I was like, wait a second, I became extremely focused on the fact that my chest was not moving, that my chest was stiff and it was very heavy and it was not moving. And I remember being like, wait, I'm supposed to be breathing. Like, why am I? And then I started to panic a little bit. And then some sort of strength in me goes, you have to just be okay that you're not breathing. You have to just accept the fact that you are not breathing. It's okay. And like I just convinced myself to not panic because I knew that if I did, nothing good, it was going to get worse. Like if I inside my own mind, I tried to open my eyes, I tried to move my hands, I couldn't. I tried to like let them know that I was awake, and I was just like freaking out, and I was just like, Nicole, you just have to be okay with it. Just accept the fact that your chest isn't moving, that you're not breathing, and just be okay with it. And I was just, it was very dark, and there were just bright neon lights above my head. But I remember just being like not even looking up. And it was as if I was stubbornly like planting myself in my body at this point, and not I wouldn't even acknowledge the lights. I feel like if I had looked up, maybe, but I was just like, no, like I'm not going anywhere. And that was what I meant by like the full circle, was that talk about jumping out of my body. And this time I have no reason to live. I have nothing. I'm homeless. I have no money. I have no family. And I am literally like planting myself, like anchoring myself inside my dying body with like, I'm not seeing my daughter tomorrow. I'm not going, I have nothing, no reason. And I have more strength and more will to live than like I ever had. When in the first NDE, I had more than I could, I was so spoiled. I probably had so much, but this time it was like, it was just, I chose myself. I chose my life. It wasn't for, I didn't need a fucking back of a head. I didn't need a light. Like I was just like, no, like I didn't go through all this for nothing. Like I'm staying. And it was just, if anything, it was just me discovering like me and my decision to be here. It all came full circle for me at that point. So it's been
Wow.
a
So,
long.
Nicole, what would you say to somebody who feels like a victim right now and who is in that deep despair of unworthiness after everything that you've experienced on the other side with the beans, knowing that from your grandmother that eternity exists, knowing from the beans that you are not in a place of time, that you are this infinite beauty, and now making very, very physical choices to stay here, very conscientious choices to stay here. What would you tell people about being a victim and feeling unworthy?
Just that they must be on a mission to grow, and that, if they're going through hard times, it just means they're a badass. They said to themselves, they didn't say, I'm going through this, I'm going through this. They said, I can handle this, and I can handle this, and I can handle this, and it will pay off when I reemerge into my true self. They are badass spiritual warriors. They're supposed to feel unworthy. Like if you don't feel unworthy, you'll never reemerge into your true self and almost fall to your knees from the bliss. It's like only the most advanced, like most like motivated souls are the ones that are here doing this. We're not playing it safe behind a white picket fence. We're anchoring ourselves in our dying bodies at the hospital for 6 hours, making sure we don't go anywhere, and still hating ourselves at that time. It wasn't about my insight. It was like just instinct. It was just, no, this is my life. So, feeling negative about yourself, feeling like you're a victim of life, that only means just that's the complete parallel of, or the relativeness of what you're eventually going to discover about what you're doing here. If you're feeling like, just you're probably not really making much of a impact. But if you're feeling pain, that's only because there's pleasure on the other end of this. If you're being seduced by pleasure, like you're probably not doing something right. We're not here to enjoy it. We're not here to live life and make a life here. This is school. We didn't come here to exist. We didn't come here to stay. We came here to learn. We came here for school. When the bell rings, we don't stay at school. We run home. And so the bell ringing is just what we're all waiting for. I feel like the ones who are the most tortured and traumatized, and the ones who are suffering the most negative within themselves, are just the ones that really have something to teach other people, and they're really going to be a big impact when things come to, things, the bigger picture comes to light. It's just, you have to be there to rise. You have to, the lower you dive, the higher you rise. It's, if you're feeling pain, you're doing it for a bigger cause, and like you will be appreciated for it, from yourself and from others. Like you're giving back, you're contributing.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. So, 8 months ago, you were laying in the hospital bed. You had all of these injuries. You were homeless. You didn't have any money and you didn't have any hope. How is your life different 8 months later after these experiences?
Um, I'm still healing. It's like my knowing is there. It really never left. It's more of like how I'm processing the day to day, and like exemplifying that. I'm still in a lot of pain a lot of the time, but um it's funny, like a lot of people are calming me down about things I don't even think about now. Like they're like, "Oh, it's okay. Like your scars, like scars are badass," or like whatever. And I'm like, "Oh, I didn't even think about my scars. Like I'm just happy with my arm." Like it's just things got. It's like more perspective of me for me. Um, but like I'm also processing that. So like I hit a place I never thought I would go to. So it's like it's like I'm bridging the place where I fell to and where I am now. I'm back home. I'm with my daughter. I'm grateful for all of that. I mean, really, honestly, I I'm still a little I have flashbacks from the dog attack. I panic about remembering about leaving my body and feeling my chest not move. Like I still have a lot to deal with. Because there are those parts of me that feel like there might have been a loss of control where I might have lost my life. Like I remember the parts where I was conscious and but I mean, I'm thinking about what about before became conscious, and like I was out of my body and I wasn't aware of it because I wasn't, I feel like scared of that, sometimes just because of what would have been my story if I had left at that point. It's just like I went through so much, and so it's just like more like PTSD and dealing with all that. But honestly, I mean, um, I would take me now with the PTSD over the girl who was living in a van who thought she was gonna be okay.
I understand. Well, Nicole, this has been really enlightening. You had a really unusual experience. I would imagine people who are watching would love to connect with you. And I know you have your own YouTube channel where you've released a few videos. So why don't you tell people what you're working on?
Well, I'm actually glad I didn't get too into anything yet, just because I mean, honestly, obviously, my story has kept growing, and so I've never really was able to or ready to stop and you know create yet. Now I feel like I'm at a point. I don't think I'm really going to be going on any more death experiences. I think I'm good for now, but like I don't think there's anywhere else I could go, or anything else I can't fight off. But I have a lot of ideas of things I want to do. My main thing is, I have my Reiki certification. I'm like a Reiki master, all that. But my thing is, I love to just like be a guide. I love to just like have conversations with people that lead them back into remembering who they are. There's nothing better for me than that. Just because I feel like every time that's done, it's just the world becomes better. It's it's everybody is just so divine and so important and so worthy. And if everybody had just knew that, it would just the world would be so different. It's so sad that we're programmed to just feel so negative about ourselves and so like unimportant and separated from everything. It's just my drive and my dream is to just like be that light to that light in the dark, but also the light that can be in the dark with you, because I can go down there with you. I survive it. I just want to help people out of there. I don't want anybody to ever feel the way I felt, because I was really bad and I needed someone to not to tell me tomorrow's gonna be okay, for someone to be like eternity is gonna be okay. Like that's just the answer. That's what my grandma meant. Like, nothing's filling your void, because this is the only thing that can fill a void is eternity. That's the only thing. No amount of drugs, alcohol, relationships, anything can ever fill a void. The only thing that fills a void is, the equivalent to that.
So where can people reach you to work with you?
Well, I can give my email address. I'm on YouTube, Nicole DeGroat, DeGroat. I'm on Facebook, Facebook Messenger, Nicole DeGroat. My email I use is Nicole, NICOLE, David Edward 423 at gmail.com. Um, that way, if someone wants to talk, they can email me, we can exchange numbers. I was doing a lot of that after Jeff's interview in November of 2021. it was just like my emails were full and I was enjoying it. I was thriving. I was healing from it. I didn't, and I was learning so much about myself. I wasn't asking for anything. I just wanted to, like, this was a growing experience. And as soon as Johnny passed, I couldn't bring myself to help anybody, at that point. But
Right.
I'm definitely ready now at this
Oh,
time.
that's beautiful. Well, Nicole, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for wanting to come on and share not only the experiences that you've had and talked about before, but also your new experiences, and to share the insights that you've learned from them. And I want to thank you for your part in what you are doing to help wake up the collective. It is so needed right now.
True. Thank you.
And of course, this show is absolutely nothing without all of you who tune in to watch and to share these experiences with somebody who needs it. So thank you, everybody, for watching. Do you believe that love never dies and you want to hear stories that prove it? Well, hit the subscribe button. You belong here.